All right, so I got something a little different for you guys today. Obviously, yesterday was the beginning of Season 2, and with that came the release of Ramattra, the new tank hero. So I thought I would sit down today and give you guys my first impressions, general thoughts, overall opinion on the character after playing him for a day. And I know this is going to be different than my traditional gameplay where it's like a compilation of funny moments from a live session, but I thought, why not try something new, right? I want to talk about Ramattra, and I want to make a video about him, so here we are. And if you guys like these type of videos, don't be afraid to let me know in the comment section, because potentially I could do stuff like this for the patch notes or, you know, any sort of Blizzard updates in relation to Overwatch, right? But with all that being said, let's actually get into talking about Ramattra. So you guys know, with the release of the gameplay trailer and I saw those new abilities and all the cool stuff that they added, I was like, holy shit, I'm super hyped for Ramattra, right? The first character to ever be able to transform. The first ability to ever be able to ground flying units like Pharah, Mercy, Echo, especially on a tank, is insane, because now we don't need to just swap to d.va and like try to chase her down or hope that her DPSs can do it. We have a dedicated ability for it. The ability when you transform to actually penetrate shields and people behind the shields and deal damage to them. And then an ultimate ability that tethers and turns you into a fucking final boss from Elden Ring. I was like moist. I was like, oh. And then I finally got to touch the character today, and I was like, this is underwhelming. This is not what I thought. You know, in my head, I was like, I see what you're trying to do. You kind of wanted to create a hybrid tank in between Sigma and Reinhardt, right? Where you have your Sigma form, which is your normal form, and then you're a poke tank. And then you have your Nemesis form, and that's your Rein form, where you're in close and you're fighting and you're brawling, right? And you're big and beefy. And then I just feel like they took both of those forms and created a lackluster tempo tank hybrid that just isn't good at either of the forms or isn't better than what they're trying to mimic, right? And a perfect example of this is when he's in his range form, poke form, Sigma form, whatever you want to call it, normal Ramattra, he has a shield. And that shield, in comparison to someone like Sigma, another poke tank, is bad, right? You can put it down on the ground and it lasts its duration, or if someone destroys it with 1,000 damage. And then you have to cooldown where you have to wait. Whereas in Sigma, can throw his out. When it gets this close to getting destroyed, he can retract it back and throw it out again. You know, it has a lot of versatility, whereas in Ramattra, it does not. And that's an example of like the two different types of tanks trying to be merged, and they kind of can't do either or properly. Another example is like when you're in your Nemesis form, you have your block, right? Your big beefy hands come and cover your character. You take a lot less damage. But someone like Doomfist has that block, but his whole objective is to get people to shoot it, so then he can charge up his empowered punch, so then to try and combo somebody out or kill them, right? And Rein, he'll put his shield up for a few seconds to create some sort of like disruption in the fight to potentially protect a teammate, and then he continue to swing and attack, right? But unlike Rein or Doomfist in those close range situations, Ramattra is not applying as much pressure. Obviously, Rein goes in there, starts swinging his hammer, hitting everyone, dealing a ton of damage, causing a lot of pressure for the supports to keep the tank and the DPS alive, you know, forcing everyone back and pushing them away from like the objective. And Doomfist can literally just jump behind the enemy line, combo somebody out, pull up his shield, and if you shoot him, you know, he can then empower hit you and stun you against the wall, even though now all of his punches stun. But like, he just applies a ton of pressure. And I understand why they added the penetrating punches for Nemesis form that go through shields and hit multiple people, is because they wanted Ramattra to have a similar style pressure as Reinhardt or Doomfist, but it just doesn't do enough damage, and it doesn't apply enough pressure in the right ways compared to someone like a Doomfist or a Rein. And that's another example of like lackluster combination hybrid tank, right? He just doesn't do either the two roles exceptionally well, right? And one more thing in relation to pressure, right? Like Doomfist, he has a similar block, right? But his empowers his punch, right? Whereas in Ramattra, he'll go in and start swinging and attacking, but then if he needs to go into his block form, he kind of just becomes obsolete, and it's more of like a backpedaling mechanic, and he's only defending himself and not defending his teammates, right? He'll go into block form, people will just not look at him and start punching and slapping up the enemy team, right? Whereas in Reinhardt, he puts up his shield in a high intense situation. He's not just defending himself, he's defending everyone, you know, behind him, because the shield is very large, right? So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, they missed the mark on the hybrid tempo tank that's ranged, that can apply a lot of poke, and then get close and apply a lot of pressure with Nemesis form. But what about his grounded ability where he knocks down the flyers and pulls them down and forces them out of the sky? Well, that ability is also nowhere near as good as we thought it was going to be, because it doesn't yoink them as much as it should. And also, if you're playing against a good Pharah or Echo, they can stay at the skybox for a very long time. They'll stay out of the range of what is the pull, because the pull only pulls from, like, we were checking it, it's like 15 meters down, it'll pull you down. So if you're sitting above 15 meters as a Pharah or an Echo or a Mercy, you're not going to get pulled out of the sky, which I think is stupid. I feel like the ability should just pull you. If you hover over it, it pulls you down. Maybe it pulls you down less than it would normally, because if you are in the 15 meters, it really scoops you down, right? But you can also just fly out of it, right? If you're playing Echo and you look straight instead of looking up with your flight ability, you can just fly straight and then up. So you fly out of it straight and then go straight up. Mercy, if you're in the sky, can literally just look at you and hold shift and she will fly out of the skill. Obviously, any sort of dash ability isn't affected by it, so Sojourn can just slide straight out of it. Genji can dash, McCree can roll. The only characters that are really affected by that skill in any meaningful way are like already characters that have no mobility skills, similar to like a Roadhog, maybe a Rhine. A soldier has a mobility skill, but it's kind of like a grounded sprint that will get slowed. Hanzo can still like dash jump out of it. It's just, again, a lackluster attempt at a skill that was meant to really empower a tank to deal with the situation. Honestly, it just feels like a worse version of Sojourn's AoE slow. So right now you're probably thinking, what else did they fuck up, right? The transforming tempo tank isn't really as good as the two other roles or characters that do both those things individually better. His ability that was supposed to defeat flyers as a tank doesn't really defeat flyers. His ult has to be good, right? It's a giant AoE where it sucks people and deals damage and makes him like a final boss, right? Well, no, because unlike his punches when in Nemesis form that go through shields, his ultimate does not. So if you ult, Winston can bubble you, and it has a very short cooldown where if it has no tethers, it turns off, right? So if Winstons know how to do it properly, if a Reinhardt gets a good positional awareness when you're about to ult his Ramattra, he could just turn off his ultimate, because shields block the tether, which I think is so stupid, right? It doesn't do enough damage where it warrants being turned off by shields, because I was in a long extended fight yesterday with it. It doesn't deal that much tick damage where like a shield going up for 3 seconds turns off the ultimate and makes it obsolete, or Winston jumping on top of you and bubbling you and like coming out of his bubble and you're just fucked, right? It just, again, they kind of missed the mark on the numbers. I believe if they maybe gave his Nemesis form punches a little more damage, maybe if they gave him, when he blocks in Nemesis form, an empowered few seconds of damage when he comes out of it, it would give him a reason to go into his block form. If his shield in Ramattra normal form, poke form, actually could be recalled and repositioned in different ways to be more versatile, it would be great. There's just so many things that they could change, like small little things to make him a really, really impactful character in Overwatch. But currently I just feel like they missed the mark. Like I keep saying, they're just off by the numbers, because all the abilities are really cool. Make the E that's supposed to suck people down hit skybox, so if a Pharah flies into it, it pulls her down. So you're not just throwing it under a Pharah and looking at her and saying like, oh, she didn't get pulled down, this ability's fucking dog shit. Like, it's crazy, right? But to close this video out, because I don't want to be talking for 30 minutes, put a little bow on it. Honestly, the character is super fun, right? I like everything they introduced, and I just think if they make a couple of tweaks, if they buff a small amount of things, he'll be a lot better and he'll actually be able to create an impact in the game. But like I said, don't forget to leave a comment down below what you think about the character, what you think about this type of content. If you want to see more of it, please let me know. All in all, I'm super pumped for season 2. The skins for the battle pass are dope. I'm so excited for the PvE mode that's going to come out in January. I think Overwatch is doing a lot of good things. Blizzard is doing a lot of good things for the game. The community is massive. My channel's growing every single day. Thanks for everyone who watches and supports all the videos. And I love you guys. All right. Peace out. And I'll see you in the next video.
Ride with me if you ride with me. You can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky. Come get high with me. That's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me. You can slide with me.